As it was in the days of Noah. It's a book by Jeff Kinley, and I haven't read the book, I apologize, but I read the story on the blaze, and I thought, boy, this guy is putting all the cards down on the table. The storm that he sees coming. Welcome, Jeff. How are you?
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So what do you see coming?
Well, we have to look at the words of Jesus Christ. The last week of his life, he gathered his disciples on a hillside outside Jerusalem. And basically they asked him the question, Lord, what's going to be the sign of the end times or the sign of your coming? And so Christ lays out this apocalyptic vision that we see in the book of Revelation. But then he pauses and he says, guys, it's going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. So in order to accurately understand that, we have to rewind back to the book of Genesis to find out what was Noah's generation really like. And through that, we see several characteristics emerging from history.
Well, I saw the movie, and all I know is they were meat eaters, right. And that was the problem.
Exactly. Just take care of the animals, you'll be fine.
You just take care of the animals, and you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah,
right.
big swing and a miss there. Exactly.
So what were the things?
Well, Genesis 6:5 says that wickedness was so great on planet Earth that every thought of man was only evil continually. And so what you have, Glenn, is you have a whole culture, a civilization of people that had pushed God to the margins. They had rejected God. God had become irrelevant to them. He was no longer meaningful to them. And so when you take God out of the equation, mankind is left to himself. So what we find in Noah's day is a pandemic godlessness in the land. And that's exactly what Romans chapter 1 describes, is that when we reject a vertical morality and a vertical view on life, we're left to the horizontal. And that's part of Noah's generation.
We are in a place to where I'm watching it unfold. And it's so clear, this isn't going to end well.
Right.
You know, you don't even have to believe in the Bible. You just have to believe in common sense and say, 2 plus 2, I'm sorry, Common Core, does equal 4. And we're going so dark and so evil. Yeah. But I feel like there's a disconnect from the people and the system, you know? We're all being swept up and being taught that this is the way we all are.
Right.
And I think more and more people are becoming that way because it's easy.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of really good people out there that are saying that no, that's not right. That's not who we are.
Well, and Noah was one of those people. He lived in a day where there was increasing hostility towards God. In fact, the Bible says he was the only righteous man left on the planet. And so he decided he had to do something. You know, his generation was marked by godlessness, by violence, of course, by unrestrained immorality. And here is a man who stood strong during those times. So as we see sort of the lights dimming on Western civilization as we know it, there's a hope, there's a bright light, and part of that light resides in those who follow Jesus Christ.
Tell me, because I'm shocked at how many preachers either don't get this or aren't willing to say it because it might cost them their church or you know, the people that are showing up or whatever it is, might cost them their job. And they're just not willing to say, full stop. Let's look up at the star field and see how far we've drifted. We are way off course.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get them? And then how do we get the people who have just been taught, in many cases by the righteous, that the church is irrelevant and the Bible is irrelevant and you know, it doesn't mean anything. It's a bunch of hogwash. How do we get to those people and the preachers and say, wake up?
Well, Paul even predicted in 2 Timothy 3 that there would be, in the last days, difficult days would come when people would fall away from the faith. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing in our culture is that there's so much pressure on people in leadership to have numbers, to keep the numbers up and to keep the finances up, that they're willing to do things to compromise their faith. We have to get back to the purity and the simplicity of the message of God and of the Christian faith. In order for that to happen, we've got to be centered in our own lives spiritually with Jesus Christ. And so it's going to require people and Christians and believers and people who follow Christ to get out there and to be salt and light where God has called us to be.
Do you believe we're in the end times?
Well, the Bible describes the term last days as everything from the first coming of Christ to the second coming of Christ. However, as we ramp up to the book of Revelation, we're going to see things like birth pangs become more and more severe. And I outline that in the book, as it was in the days of Noah, the violence, the sexual immorality, the godlessness, the apostasy, falling away from the faith. But at the same time, while that's happening, like the early church, when the church thrived in that first century under great persecution, under hostility, I think we have the opportunity to do the same thing today in our life.
I've been reading an awful lot of Martin Luther King lately, and I'm shocked at how much what's happening to us is a rerun. I mean, everything repeats itself. You know, if you want to say that Michael Sam thing on ESPN was wrong, well, you're at a lunch counter now, and you can't eat here. I'm having a hard time connecting with people of faith even to say, peaceful, non-violent resistance is the way to go. I don't see people singing hymns and linking arms and saying, hey, I love you, but I'm just not going to say that that's cool with me and my family. And that's cool. If it's cool with you, fine, but not us. We have to have that.
We do, and that's what Noah did. Noah had that kind of distinguishing faith. He stood out in the crowd, and he was willing to take the barbs for it, whatever it meant for him. We don't know what all that meant for him, but we do know it was a very difficult time. And I really think, Glenn, that we're going to have to do that if we're going to survive.
I know. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
God bless. You bet.